Okay, friends, time for Chapter 12, Camp Howie Wowie. An hour later, the Howies were sound asleep on our living room floor. Up with the sun, asleep with the moon, Cousin Howie had said. You'll hardly know we're here. I'll know, I thought. And just like that, they climbed into their sleeping bags and closed their eyes. Cousin Howie snored softly. Lined up next to him were Eudora, the mini Farley, followed by the natural beauties. They slept flat on their backs like a row of hot dogs in their rolls. All that was missing was the mustard and the relish. Turtle didn't get it. He kept sniffing them. He even tried licking Eudora's face since no toes were available. But still, they didn't wake up. Mom had told me to get Turtle into my room and fast, but I couldn't lure him away from the Howies. Psst, I whispered, crawling around the living room on all fours, holding out a wedge of cheese. Come here, boy. He didn't even look at me. Mom motioned for me to come into the kitchen. She was laying out plates, bowls, and silverware. Would you count out 9 glasses, Peter? Are we having a midnight supper or what? It's for tomorrow's morning breakfast, Mom said. I checked the cupboard. I hate to break it to you, Mom, but we don't have 9 juice glasses. How about 4? I'll ask Dad to pick up some paper cups. Where is Dad, anyway? At the grocery store. We've got 5 extra mouths to feed in the morning. When the phone rang, Mom grabbed it on the first ring. I'll take it in the bedroom so I don't wake our guests. The second Mom left the kitchen, Fudge tore out of his room in his pajamas and started jumping over the sleeping Howies, making Turtle bark. Still, they didn't stir. Maybe they're dead, Fudge whispered to me. They're not dead. How do you know? Because they're breathing. Be quiet. You can hear them. Fudge listened. Then he said, It's better to breathe, right, Pete? Yeah, it's definitely better to breathe. Remember when I wanted to be a bird breather when I grow up? That was a bird breeder, I reminded him. Oh, right, a bird breeder. He watched the Howies for a minute, then looked up at me. This is fun, isn't it, Pete? No, I told him. It's not fun. He followed me into the kitchen. How come? How come? I repeated. I'll give you 5 reasons how come. But Pete, Grandma says the more the merrier. Grandma's full of sayings. You don't have to believe all of them. But I do. He dragged a chair over to the counter, climbed up, opened the snack cupboard, and pulled out a pack of rice cakes. It's like a giant sleepover, isn't it? I could think of plenty of words besides sleepover to describe the situation, but none that were appropriate to say in front of him. When Mom came back to the kitchen and found Fudge stuffing his face, she scooped him up and carried him back to his room where he started singing. A minute later, Turtle was howling. He loves to sing along with Fudge. I was glad Uncle Feather was still on strike. A trio would have been more than I could take tonight. If I'd gone to bed then, I'd probably have been okay. Annoyed, but okay. I mean, suppose The Simpsons were on tonight, and I wanted to watch. Our only TV is in the living room. Then I started thinking, wait a minute. Suppose my science teacher told us to watch a show on the Discovery Channel, and we were going to discuss it in class tomorrow. She did that once. But this time I wouldn't be able to answer her questions. My teacher would say, you should have told me you don't have a TV, Peter. Then Sheila Tubman's hand would shoot up. I happen to know the Hatchers have a TV, Mrs. DeFeo, she'd blab. It's in their living room. Then I'd have to explain that I couldn't watch because our living room had been turned into a sleepaway camp. What camp is that? Miss DeFeo would ask, and I'd have to think fast to come up with some name. Camp Howie Wowie, I'd tell her. Then everyone would laugh. The longer I thought about it, the more worked up I got. My heart started beating faster. My mouth felt dried out, and the palms of my hands were getting clammy. Still, I couldn't tear myself away from the sleeping Howies. It was like one of those bad dreams where you want to run, but you can't. It was like my feet were glued to the floor. I could feel the anger boiling up inside me. Any second I would burst and it would come pouring out like lava from a volcano. Just go to bed, I kept telling myself, but my feet refused to listen to my brain. Finally, I forced myself to break away. I tore down the hall to the bathroom, shut the door behind me, and leaned against it. But when I saw the 5 toothbrushes lined up in a row, the 5 towels hanging from the towel bar, and the 5 hairbrushes, not to mention the giant economy-sized bottle of vitamins, I just lost it. I mean, totally. I grabbed the towels and threw them to the floor, one after the other. Then I trampled on them like I was trying to kill some gigantic roach. Ah! This strangled sound came from deep inside me as I swept their hairbrushes off the counter. I kicked at them as if they were poisonous snakes. I turned into a raving lunatic. No, even worse, I turned into my brother at the shoe store. Then I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. My face was red, my eyes wild. I looked like some demented guy in a scary movie. In the back of my mind, I heard Cousin Howie asking, what do we do when we get carried away? And the natural beauties answering, we stop and count to 10. And if that doesn't work, We count to 10 again. So I started to count. When I got to 10, I took a deep breath and started all over. In the mirror, I saw my facial expression return to normal. I couldn't believe I'd used Cousin Howie's method to control my anger, or that it actually worked. But it did. I shook out the 5 towels and hung them up again. Probably no one would notice since they were dark gray. There are other ways to handle this situation, I told myself as I lined up their hairbrushes. I marched down the hall to Mom and Dad's room and pushed open the door without knocking. How do we know these people are who they say they are, I said. Mom was stretched out on her bed, her hands over her eyes. What? The Howies. They could be anybody. A week ago, we didn't even know they existed, and now they're sleeping on our living room floor. But they have the Hatcher jaw, don't they, Mom said. I don't see any Hatcher jaw, I said. Do you? Well, I thought I did. Mom looked worried for a second. Then she shook her head and waved her hand. Oh, this is silly. Of course they're Dad's cousins. Hey, it's okay with me if you want 5 strangers sleeping on our living room floor. They're not strangers, honey, Mom said. They're family. No one but Cousin Howie ever called Dad Tubby. She put an arm around my shoulder. You should get to sleep. I'd just like to know one thing, Mom. What's that? Why you and Dad had to invite them to stay here. We don't have room for 2 extra people, let alone 5. Well, they more or less invited themselves. We were quiet for a minute, then Mom said, this is really important to Dad, so let's make the best of it, okay? Important how? Mom said, when Dad was a boy, his mother got very sick. She did? Mom nodded. Cousin Howie's parents were wonderful. Dad spent the whole summer with them, and for a while he and Cousin Howie were as close as, well, you and Jimmy. How come I never heard this story before? I guess Dad doesn't like to talk about that time in his life. It was hard on him. Did his mother get better? She did, for a while. I wish Dad would tell me these things. He doesn't like to upset you. Yeah, but how am I supposed to understand anything if he won't talk about it? Maybe someday he will, Mom said. Well, by then it'll be too late. I hope not. She reached out and ruffled my hair. I understand that having 5 almost strangers sleeping on the living room floor doesn't give you or any of us much privacy, but it's just for tonight. 2 nights at the most. We'll get through it. Then she leaned over and kissed me. Sometimes I don't let her, but this time I did.